Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. As you can tell by my 90s, noughties sort of attire today, we are going to be talking about Buffy versus Angel. About midsummer last year, during the first lockdown, they put all of Buffy onto 4OD, and then I finished it around sort of mid-September, and I was just obsessed. I hadn't been like this obsessed with the show since like the good old days of Game of Thrones. Once I finished Buffy, it only felt right that I would then watch Angel, which is a spin-off of Buffy and carries on the sort of the storyline of this sort of side character, and I really enjoyed it, probably just as much as Buffy. If you're watching this video and you've never seen Buffy or Angel, first off, what are you doing? But also, this is your spoiler warning. I'm telling you right now there's going to be a lot of talk about characters, story arcs. So this is it. This is your first and your last warning that there are spoilers ahead. So let's talk about differences. First off, we have the setting. You know, Buffy is this high school girl. She just moves into Sunnydale and she is a slayer, but she also wants to sort of have that typical sort of high school student life, you know, relationships, friendships. And then you have Angel, which is much more, you know, he's this sort of vampire demon anyway, and he has to learn to sort of better himself. You know, all of the surrounding characters make mistakes and they have to live with that. So, you know, in its right, Angel is a lot more darker sort of from the get-go, and Buffy is about this story of a growing up sort of young woman, you know, learning who she is and finding out, you know, what her interests are and where she sort of stands. Whereas Angel, he's very sort of set in his ways, but he wants to redeem himself for the act that he's committed as a vampire. So let's talk about characterization. In the early seasons of Buffy, we have the sort of infamous Scooby Gang. You know, you have Buffy, Willow, Xander, Giles. This sort of group dynamic, and they're still at high school. They're very sort of young, naive, and they do have that progression within those sort of early seasons. And then I think it's really once they leave school and they go to college and, you know, whatever else they choose to do from season 4 onwards, I think this is where we see a lot more character progression, especially if you compare, like, you know, season 1 with season 5 and where those characters have gone. Whereas Angel, there's probably a little less progression in the characters because they are, like I said, they are adults. They're a bit more familiar with who they are as people. Saying that, I think a lot of characters within Angel do have some kind of character progression, whether that's from their appearance in Buffy to Angel. So the main example I'm thinking of is Cordelia. Cordelia was very much sort of the mean girl in Buffy. You know, she tried to be a bit of a friend and she had a relationship with Xander, obviously, but I think within Angel she becomes her own person. She knows who she is. She gets purpose with those sort of powers gifted to her from Doyle, and I think she's much more mature. She's self-aware, and I think she gets, you know, sort of kick up the butt when she moves to LA and realises, you know, she's just, you know, a needle in a haystack. She's very sort of small there, whereas Sunnydale, she was a big personality, but I think reality sort of, you know, puts Cordelia on the right track to becoming a better person and sort of having a understanding and compassion for other people. In the early seasons of Buffy, it's very much, you know, black and white, you know, good and evil. Whereas on Angel, he is a vampire himself and he is willing to sort of cohabit with demons. You have Doyle, Lorne, and, you know, he's seen sort of, you know, sort of hanging around sort of Lorne's sort of karaoke bar. There's loads of demons and we get to see more, you know, the personality, and he saves demons, he saves humans. What I like about this show is it sort of flips the trope. You know, the humans, Wolfram and Hart, are the villains in this show. They are the overarching sort of villains. But in Buffy, you know, it's always sort of the demons, the vampires, it's always the monster. I mean, there's a few sort of humans, you know, with the mayor. But generally, I think Angel is much more sort of diverse. It gives you much better understanding of the layers that, you know, there's sort of human elements to these sort of demons, and it's much more complex. You know, it's not just, you know, A and B. There is that sort of line in between, and, you know, it's all blurred. But and that's why I prefer Angel. It's sort of representation of good and evil, whereas Buffy's probably a little bit more set in its ways with how that is shown on TV. So in terms of similarities, both shows have this theme of found family, and I love that about both these shows. You know, regardless of your background, your sort of relationships, your friendships, you know, your sort of cultural differences, both shows have a place where you can sort of find your own family. It doesn't really matter, and both groups highlight that. And I think that's a really good message to audiences, audience members who might feel a little bit lost. They don't feel like they can be themselves within their own sort of family. So I think this is such an important dynamic to show on TV, and I think it really works for both shows. So another similarity that both shows have is that they use a supernatural setting to sort of show very human issues. What I love about the sort of sci-fi fantasy genre is, it has these really cool locations, the makeup, the whole sort of world, but at the heart of it, the issues that it tackles are very humane. You deal with loss, love, friendship, sort of courage, confidence. All these sort of traits are within all of us, and we can all relate to them in some way or another. So regardless of its setting, it doesn't matter that Angel's a vampire. I'm not a vampire. I mean, you're not a vampire, what I mean? It doesn't matter, because we can find something human within all of these characters. Doesn't matter who they are, or, their experiences are, sort of lifted from life and from real people. And it just sort of shows that, this sort of very late 90s show that I'm only watched for the first time in 2020, it still stands up because of these really strong characters, themes, and the issues it tackled. I thought, I could just talk about that, but I just think that this show does so much and it stood the test of time, and I think it's because these characters, regardless of the sort of the supernatural and the sort of spiritual world, are very human, and the experiences they go through are relatable to many people watching either shows. Of course, you probably don't just want to hear my opinions, so I thought I would talk to my friend MJ, who I know is a massive Buffy and Angel fan. She's even met all the cast, which I'm very, very jealous about, and I wanted to get her sort of opinion on what is better, Buffy or Angel. Right, guys, I'm here with MJ, who is also a massive Buffy and Angel fan. How are you today, MJ?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thanks. So we're here today to talk all things Buffy and Angel. So first off, let's just get some sort of generic feels. What do you love about Buffy?
Well, the thing that I love most about Buffy, and this is kind of selfish, I guess, is the nostalgia for it. I was lucky enough that I watched it when it was on the air live. I will not assume how old you are, Sarah. I won't ask. But yeah, I was quite young. I think I was about 8 when I watched it first. So I grew up with Buffy, and I was 14 or yes, maybe 14 when it finished. So I totally grew up with her as like a big sister. And I kind of loved how when I then went to rewatch it in my 20s, she then kind of came up here. And then I'm rewatching it now and I look at her as like my little sister, I guess. And I love how it speaks to all those kinds of parts of my life. Do you know what I mean? There's some, like when I look at it now, I'm just like, the people failed her so bad. But when I was younger, I just wanted to be her so much.
So what's your relationship with Angel? Did you watch it sort of straight after? What was it there?
Yeah, so I get because we watched it live. It was me and my sister. We shared a bedroom, and she was a bit older than me, so she got a part-time job to pay for. I think it was called like On Digital at the time. It was like before Sky or Virgin or something like that.
Okay.
So we had On Digital, and we would watch it straight after Buffy. At first, it was like on at the exact same time. So I think it was like Buffy was on at 8 o'clock, and then Angel was on at 9 o'clock, or maybe it was 9 and 10.
Okay.
And we would watch them back to back. So for the first few series, when they were both on the same network, it was amazing because you would see the crossover episodes like
yeah,
at the
in
same time,
tandem, weren't they?
thing.
They were played, was it, before and after, and it would make
Yeah.
sense then. Yeah. I do like the way it ends. I do like the way that Buffy ends, and I do like the way that Angel ends. I know it's very sort of divided opinion, but I think they both give this sort of hope, that it continues, and the fight's not over, and they can pass it on to like the younger generation. I really liked the message that both series had. What did you think about the sort of the finales?
So the Buffy finale Chosen, I howled from about 5 minutes in. There's a bit in Chosen. I made a poster for my bedroom window and all this. Honestly,
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really big day in my household. There's a bit in the finale where they're all kind of ready to go to the last battle, and it's Willow, Xander, Buffy, and Giles have what do you want to do tomorrow? Like this conversation. And they leave, and then Giles turns around and goes, "The Earth is definitely doomed," which is a callback to the very first episode of Buffy where he says that as well at the end of the harvest. Yeah, I believe it is.
Yes. Yeah.
And from that bit, I was just howling until the end. That was it. I was gone, and I I just love it. Ends on that line, what do you want to do now, Buffy? And she deserves to have her life ahead of her. She's been fighting since she's 15. And I was thinking about this morning when I knew we were going to have this conversation. The thing that I think I was most excited about at the end is that they kind of decide that nobody gets to decide who empowers them. They get to empower themselves. And obviously, this is a thing that was done to women and girls thousands of years ago. There'll be one.
Yeah.
And quite often she's a child. And we'll make her defend the world, and we'll just watch. And they decided, no, we'll just decide who's getting empowered, and it's going to be all of us. And it's just and it's such a beautiful thing. I was howling of like kind of sisterhood and looking out for each other, and and then I think the great thing about Angel is that he has had so many chances. And he's lived so long that it's kind of, in my head, I know there's comics, but in my head, he goes out fighting after that.
Yeah.
That's how it ends to me. And I think that's kind of the right ending for him, is to go out fighting.
I don't know. I think I was really surprised how emotional I felt towards a lot of the characters in Angel, with certain deaths and stuff, and the injustice of some characters' endings. I was surprised because I was like, Buffy sits so high, like in my ratings. Nothing will beat it, but it's pushing it. It's definitely pushing it. But for me personally, I think Buffy will always be there because, like you said, the tropes are more sort of relatable to everyone. And the characters, I can find someone like that in my life, and the experience is a bit more real. Whereas not everyone has this redemption story in their life, that overarching sort of theme for Angel of redemption. Not everyone has that, I guess. So I guess that's a little bit harder to connect to. But the people like Cordelia, Gunn, Fred, Wesley, all of their stories, I think what draw me into Angel much more.
The tone's just a bit lighter in Buffy. At the start. I would say it definitely gets from
series 5 onwards. I think it goes. The tone definitely shifts. Whether that's because I know they intentionally wanted to. They thought it was going to end at end of season 5, didn't they? And I think that could have been a perfect little neat thing. But 6 and 7 take a different turn, but
they do. I think my most controversial, not my most controversial, I have some controversial Buffy opinions, but one of my most controversial ones is I think I love the end of season 7. I do.
Yeah, I think it wraps it up perfectly, and the link back to like the first few series, and I said before, like the hope, that there is, we can still do good. We're giving another generation. I think it ultimately loses its way a little bit, maybe in some of the seasons before that, but season 7 ultimately does do it justice. I think
everybody does. It's still the thing people ask you, I think, if they know you're a Buffy fan. They will still either say, are you team Angel or team Spike? And I'm like, please. Or they'll say either, oh, I love Buffy, or oh, I preferred Angel. That's still kind of the thing that I think people come back to. So they were huge at the time. I mean, there was nothing really bigger in terms of genre television. I hate that phrase, genre, as if everything's not a genre, but you know what I mean? Like, at the time there was nothing bigger, and I think it still lives on so well, really. And we're still talking about it.
Exactly.
Still, people are still living off the tropes that kind of they created or that they remolded, etc. And I need to go back and rewatch Angel. That's really what I've learned today. I have the DVDs sitting right there. I'm looking at them.
There's no excuse. That's it.
I know. But yeah, they definitely became, I think they start off much closer together, and you can kind of see them go off and become their own thing. And you see that from the crossover episodes. There's a lot more at the start, and then it gets less and less and less. So yeah, I think it's their own thing, and that's fine. It should be. They should be allowed to exist in their separate universes, but add to each other when it makes sense to do so.
Yeah. Bro, well, thank you for joining me today, MJ. I've loved talking about Buffy and Angel. I'm sure we could talk about this for hours on end. But yeah, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of that, MJ. Whenever you find someone that's a massive sort of Buffy or Angel fan, you want to talk about, specific scenes, character arcs, sort of those sort of funny moments. And it was great to chat to her, and I'm sure we could have spoken for hours. I know during this video I've probably swayed a little bit more towards Angel, but honestly, I watched Buffy first, and it just sort of, it really stuck with me. I think the characters, the themes, the humour, everything about it is pretty good. I personally have never felt more attuned to a character on TV, or probably even film, as I have with the way that I feel very similar to Buffy. The way that she reacts to things, the way she sort of contains her emotions and doesn't really talk about stuff. I definitely sort of really felt that, you know, that's a sort of a trait of mine that I know I do, and it's very sort of eye-opening to see that sort of representation on it, because I'm self-aware. The writing of the character and Sarah Michelle Gellar's sort of performances really hit home for me, and that's why Buffy will always have a special place in my heart, because I've never felt so connected to a character like that in a long time. Despite its now outdated green screen, CGI and sort of very inappropriate language in both shows, it still stood the test of time, and it's really found a place sort of within my favourite TV shows that I've ever watched. I think it's all an encompassing kind of brilliant show, you know, with various factors that help to make it so good, and I will definitely be returning to it again and again. I do generally watch just as much TV as film, so if there's a show you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments and I'll make sure and see if I've seen it, and maybe it will be a future video. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and hopefully I'll see you next week for another popcorn chat.